Hello and welcome to the Backlot 605 podcast. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Casey Calderman. Join with me, as always, and I'm going to call him by his name, Brian Mensing.
Good. I'm glad you're calling me by my name.
I am calling you by your name, Brian. Brian, how the hell are you?
I'm doing good. You know, as opposed to a couple weeks ago when you called me yours and yours mine and all that.
I called you by your name.
That's when you should have been doing that.
I had this movie in my mind at that time, and I'm like, I'm gonna call me by your name. And guess what the movie topic of this week is? Call Me By Your Name from 2017. So glad we are going to be doing this here for our Pride movie series. Our fourth week this time. This is our second go-around with this series that we began last June. And we have our first returning guest from last June, Jimmy Diaz from Sioux Falls Pride. Welcome back.
Thank you. Glad to be back. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely.
Last time was Perks of Being a Wallflower, if I'm not mistaken. Very glad when Brian said this is the movie that you chose this time. Like, yes, thank God we're doing Call Me By Your Name. I've been waiting to do this one for a while.
I do want to point out that the original thing that he suggested last year, we ended up doing this year a couple weeks ago when we did Love, Simon.
It's all come full circle. It's all full circle now. So, Jimmy, I know you are involved with the Sioux Falls Pride organization. Can we talk a little bit about that before we jump into this week's episode? I mean, we have no movie news to talk about, so we got plenty of time this time around to talk about some of the events coming up here in Sioux Falls this upcoming week. Can you explain, obviously, what the organization is and what some of the events are coming up this week?
So Sioux Falls Pride, basically, we come together as a group of volunteers that try to bring awareness to the community and bring community together as one. Try to get everybody to feel comfortable and kind of just make everybody feel inclusive with being out and being proud of who they are. As a Republican state, it can be difficult at times, but Sioux Falls Pride comes together and we just push forward for legislation to get passed. We back those things up if we are capable of doing that. Being a nonprofit, not always can we do that, but we could definitely support anybody who has movement in those actions. So this week coming up on Saturday, we have our big event, which we're excited about because we had to cancel last year due to COVID. So this year is our re-celebration of our 20-year anniversary as being an organization surrounded around the LGBTQ community. So this Saturday at Sharapa Place downtown, we're having our festival in the park, so to speak. It's a parking lot. But then we also have a drag bingo that's going to be happening downtown at Club David Friday night. There's a kickoff drag show there. There's an after party after the festival at Club David. There's some poetry reading that's happening. There was axe throwing last week. You could just go onto our website, siouxfallspride.org, and check everything out. It's all listed on there. We got a lot of stuff going on.
And I think this is after the fact now because we come out on a Wednesday, this podcast, but I believe the night before this will come out then Full Circle is playing The Birdcage for like little Pride movie series, which I'm very excited about because I love that movie. I'm hoping to make it out. We'll know by the time this podcast comes out if I have made it or not. I don't know. But
you'll have to make an addendum to the end of it.
Yeah. But the State Theater is also playing some Pride movies this weekend, including a movie we talked about last year, Brian, Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
They recently played Love, Simon.
And they recently played Love, Simon. I think they watched what we're doing, Brian. So maybe we'll get Call Me By Your Name next year then.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Or A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, for all we know. I don't know.
That sounds like something they would do, though.
It totally does, and I would be the first person to buy a ticket to that.
After watching them go through and give us a double feature for Aliens, I could see them absolutely doing something with Nightmare on Elm Street.
Why not do Call Me By Your Name and A Nightmare on Elm Street 2 double feature? Why not? Those go perfectly hand in hand with each other.
You just gave the cards to your end question for the end of the segment.
Yeah, that's obviously my double feature pick for this movie, but we'll get to that question in about an hour or so. But Jimmy, thank you again so much for joining us. This is going to be awesome to talk about this movie here. But before we get into Call Me By Your Name, let's jump into the box office results here for the last weekend. Brian, the first one's all you, man, because number one is The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard, which is a movie I had forgot was even coming out.
Really? You
$11.68
forgot?
million. I forgot the first one was even a movie. So yes.
I enjoy this. It's still on my docket of things I still need to get seen, whatnot. But I don't know. I love the chemistry of Ryan Reynolds and Sam Jackson together. I don't know. So I've been looking forward to this here. I've heard mixed things about Salma Hayek's character in the movie and whatnot, but again, I'll watch anything with Salma Hayek in it too. So
You had me at Ryan Reynolds, so
right, it's the dreamy eyes and the sarcastic about persona.
Yeah, I've not seen the first one, so I didn't have any interest in this, but I've heard good things about the first one. I'll have to maybe pop it on like Netflix or Hulu or whatever it's on right now. Sure, it's on one of those.
It's like I said. I mean, you're gonna get exactly what you expect out of Ryan Reynolds and Sam Jackson, and putting those two in the same scene together. You're gonna get what you expect.
Number 2 is something that we've expected to see in the box office last couple weeks. A Quiet Place Part 2, $9.4 million, still doing pretty well. I believe this is its 4th weekend out for A Quiet Place 2, so it's been out here for a month. $9.4 million. Again, the highest grossing movie of the pandemic era of Hollywood cinema. So congratulations, Jim Halpert, on doing, making the highest grossing movie of the last year and a half.
More reason why we'll probably eventually see John Krasinski in the Fantastic Four.
Just give the guy the movie. Marvel, if you're listening, right? You already have half of your cast at that point. If you get him to direct the movie,
right? Exactly.
Yeah. I haven't had a chance to watch this yet. I need to get into a theater before.
How is the horror guy not seeing?
Because it's not a horror movie. It's not a horror movie, Brian. John Krasinski says it's not a horror movie, so therefore it is not a horror movie.
Okay, fine.
It's a family thriller.
It's kind of that, yeah.
And another family thriller is our number 3, Peter Rabbit 2, The Runaway. Another sequel I did not know existed until it came out into theater, $6.1 million. And a movie I forgot was even a thing. I always get this movie mixed up with Hop. And I would rather see a sequel to that, I guess.
Remember Hop? I do remember Hop. I do remember also the fact that I picture James Corden is going to ride this Peter Rabbit train for as long as he possibly can. So I expect that we're going to get like a Peter Rabbit 3. Just wait.
Good for him. Hopefully he interviews himself on his show.
As Peter Rabbit?
As Peter Rabbit, yeah. And then number 4, we have The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, $5.15 million. Again, our 3, 4, and 5 here this week, looking similar to last week. The Devil Made Me Do It.
The devil made you watch it too.
The devil did make me watch it, and he punished me for it. I was not a fan of this one. And I guess I'll give a quick little plug. Me and Sam Lenz talked about the entire Conjuring series on the Slash Lap podcast coming out, I believe, at the end of this week. Go check that out. Me and Sam, we're on the same page with this one. So for fans of the Conjuring 3, I'm sorry. Number 5, Cruella, $5.1 million for the Disney live-action prequel remake.
Whatever
this thing is. Cruella, Emma Stone, $5.1 million. Heard good things, though. But, still sticking around.
After Sam made the reference about how he came out of this movie, I'm like, I want to kind of see this movie even more now.
I will eventually pop it on once it goes onto Disney Plus as for free.
For free,
but I'm not paying $30 for it.
No, not at all. Not at all. I'll go to the Cinemark for like $5.
Yeah.
Any of these have any of these been of any interest to you there, Jimmy?
Ryan Reynolds one and Cruella I've seen with my son. So,
what did you think of Cruella?
Yeah. I thought it was interesting. It was nice to actually learn like her story of how she became Cruella, and I'm interested to see how they keep going with it and going on to how then it became 101 Dalmatians. So yeah, I thought it was good. It kept me, I thought it was probably one of the best Disney live action films I've seen.
Where would you put a bottom one, just out of curiosity?
Aladdin. I mean, it's okay, but
it looks pretty, but that's about it.
Yeah, basically.
Because when I think of trying to tell Arab stories, I think of hiring the British guy that made Snatch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've heard about Cruella. That's why I'm sort of excited to watch it, because their last couple live action remakes have been, Aladdin and The Lion King, and have been stinkers. So I'm hoping this one's pretty good.
The Lion King's live action, right?
Yeah, the live action-ish Lion King. Yeah.
I do like the fact that, and obviously there must be getting a much better praise out of this in terms of live action remakes, because, we already know we're getting a sequel to this where they haven't said anything about Aladdin I think they might have said something about Lion King, but I know that they're supposed to be doing something Jungle Book wise, aren't they?
I don't know which one Jon Favreau's doing. I think they're like, well, whatever money you want, we'll give it to you, but you can pick which one.
Jon Favreau's just like, I got this.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't want to see a sequel to either, unless you're going to do like Simba's Pride as the sequel, and then maybe I'll be interested, and I'll just jump into that one and never watch the actual live action Lion King. I don't know.
Maybe a Lion King 1.5.
And I would take an Aladdin. Actually, I would watch that. From what I've heard, Timon and Pumbaa are the best parts. So if I can get to Mystery Science Theater 3000 with who is it, Seth Rogen and who plays the live action Timon?
I cannot think.
Yeah, all of a sudden you put me on the spot there.
I almost wanted to say Seth Rogen and Nathan Lane, but I'm like, I'd watch the hell out of that too.
You're probably not wrong.
Nathan Lane was Pumbaa in the animated one. Oh my gosh.
No, Scar, Zazu, no, Mufasa. Come on, IMDb. Timon. Billy Eichner.
Yes.
Billy, yeah, because
I would watch Billy Eichner and Seth Rogen doing Mystery Science Theater 2, the first live action Lion King.
I'll watch anything with Billy Eichner after watching him in American Horror Story.
Not Billy on the Streets?
No, not Billy on the Streets.
I like Billy on the Streets. I like Billy on the Streets.
I like Billy on the Streets too, but I also like serious Billy Eichner though too.
So I guess question will leave people with the box office. What's your favorite live action Disney remake? Is it Cinderella? Because it has to be Cinderella.
It has to be Cinderella, huh? It's not Maleficent.
No, Cinderella is legit better than it's the only one that's legit better than the original.
I will say that I've seen 2 of the animated remakes, the live action remakes, because I've never seen Cinderella. I've never seen Lion King. I've seen Aladdin. That's about it that I can think of off the top of my head. Because sometimes I'm wondering, like, why are we rehashing these classics? Why can't we just let them be the classics? I know the money.
Disney likes money. Did you know that? I didn't know that.
I do know that. That's why they get my money. Well, I was going to say every single month, but I'm prepaid for like 3 more years.
So speaking of Disney remaking films, they also remade Call Me By Your Name last week with Luca, but we're going to talk about Call Me By Your Name instead this week. So let's jump into it.
I will say, before we get into that, watching Luca and then watching this right afterwards was a little surreal. And that was just by sheer happenstance.
You planned it. It's okay.
I had no clue that Luca. I didn't watch any of the previews. I had no idea that it was based in like a little Italian town and whatnot. So I'm like, oh, this is a little weird.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to watch Luca yet, but as soon as I saw what the premise was and like the first images that first came out, I'm like, oh my God, they're doing Call Me By Your Name as in Pixar form. I'm all in.
Kind of.
But Brian, I guess you can tell us if it is or not by the end of this. Maybe you'll double feature it with Call Me By Your Name. I don't know, because you already did it, and maybe like, yeah, that's a perfect double feature for people out there. But Call Me By Your Name is our movie this week from 2017. Entered into the Oscar race later that year. I remember watching this movie right at the in the middle of the Oscar race from that year, and just immediately fell in love with this movie. So it was nice to revisit it here. a couple years later. But Jimmy, what was it about this movie that made you want to say, yeah, that's the movie I want to talk about?
I think there's kind of a few different things actually that kind of struck me. When I watched this film, I felt myself connecting with both characters, and kind of watching Elio like really discover himself, what he really wants out of life, and then you have somebody who's kind of questioning and kind of dabbling their foot, so to speak, in having relations with the same sex, Oliver. So I just think I felt a connection to both, and I could understand the feeling and the emotions that each of them felt, and wasn't quite sure how to handle it. The age difference that kind of set me off at first. I was like, he's 17 years old, but then I had to remind myself that it's 1984, I think it was 1984. So things were different, and they're in Italy, so there's different things that take place there. But overall, I just felt a deep connection with both, and I felt like I truly understand what they were going through, the relationship, and kind of those internal battles that you can say that they were fighting, and how to actually truly accept themselves and be comfortable.
Yeah, this is really like just a human story and about relationships and connecting with other people more than really anything else. And that's what I connected to right away with this, is like you were saying, like you connect with both of the characters here and you totally understand both of them and both of their situations and livelihoods that they come from. And also, like, we'll get into it, but the parents in this movie I find just super endearing as well, especially the father character. He has that speech at the end of the movie, and I'm like, where's Michael Stuhlbarg's Oscar for that scene? Like, he's so good at it. He's incredible. And yeah, watching it both times, it brings you to tears, and it's just an incredible scene. And yeah, I mean, the two leads in this movie are just so great as well, and have such great chemistry with each other. And kind of that age difference also adds to their characters as well, and the relationship that forms between them, because Elio, Timothy Chalamet, is kind of almost this in a way like a younger brother type of character, where he's like always wants to tag along with the older Oliver Armie Hammer, and always wants to hang around with him and do whatever he's doing and hang out with him and go into town whenever he's going into town. And I'm like, that's a relationship we all kind of know out there, of having that kind of tag along little brother type of character. But yeah, Brian, this was a first time watch for you, if I'm not mistaken. What was your initial impressions?
What's my initial impression? I didn't feel I was smart enough to watch. It's just because of the culture side of things. We see Elio, the astute person who understands art and music and all this stuff, whatever. And I just like, wow, I feel like I'm a fourth grader at this point right now, just because in terms of that type of thing, like just overall. But I mean, in terms of
Brian, you're just an American. It's okay. We're just Americans. It's okay.
I know that was one of the things it took me a little bit to get used to. I'm like, okay, majority of this is going to be in Italian. Okay, I got to get used to that a little bit. But no, I mean, it was a very enjoyable watch, because we get to see these characters grow, and we get the character development that we get very lacking in some other movies. So, it was definitely definitely worth watching. It's one of those ones that I feel that I probably will end up having to rewatch at some point here, just simply because of picking up on other things that I didn't see the first time, and just re-experiencing it, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think this is definitely a movie that pays off in subsequent rewatches of the movie. Like, you get further into the characters and their relationships and bonds, especially with other people that are not as present as Elio and Oliver. You kind of get their thoughts on everything going on and how they view either character. And I mean, we'll jump into the plot here, and then we'll kind of jump into a little bit of discussions here. But so, like Jimmy said, takes place 1984 in Italy. We got 17-year-old Elio, who is played by Timothy Chalamet, who basically this is his parents' like vacation home, where they come here during the summers, special like holidays like Easter and Christmas. They come here as well. Obviously, they have probably a lot of money, is what I'm going to assume.
What university does this guy work at that he's a professor and that is his summer home?
I mean, he's digging up statues out of the ocean. He must be pretty important.
I know. Right? I was gonna say, depending on, I was like, what kind of archaeology are we talking about here? What kind of stuff is because again, it's 83. Things are a little bit different. Money, the cost of things are different and whatnot. But I was like, I want to. If I were to go live in Italy for a summer or whatever, this is where I want to go live. This is just an absolutely gorgeous place to go live.
Mm-hmm. And I'm really glad we watched it during the summer, because last time I watched it was in the middle of South Dakota winter during Oscar season. So watching it this time, I'm like, it gives you more of that summertime feels. Like we've had extreme heat here in South Dakota the last couple of weeks. So watching this movie, you're like, I can actually relate to it this time a little bit more.
You're not all hot because you're covered in a
in my winter coat and blanket. Yeah. So while Elio and his family are on vacation, Army Hammer's Oliver shows up. He's basically like a student, student assistant, intern for the father, and basically gets to live with the family for the summer while they do some research. Of course, on the picture that's behind Brian is kind of the main focus of unearthing a statue from the ocean. Which is a great scene, and we'll talk about the nice little friendship from that scene.
I love that scene.
And then the two kind of form this budding friendship throughout this movie that turns into a budding romance as well. That the two keep hidden from pretty much everyone, but as we'll find out in the final couple scenes of the movie, that Elio's parents were pretty well aware of what was happening the entire time, and we'll get to that Stuhlbarg monologue at the end of this, which is, like I said, Oscar. Give him an Oscar. 3 years later, give it to him.
that needs to be a thing. That needs to be a thing. That, hey, we missed one here. We're gonna give you the Oscar we should have given you like 5 years ago.
Like every 5 years, the Oscars should look back at just one performance that was not nominated and be like, well, here's our making up for it now 5 years later.
Oops, we messed up.
Oops, we messed up. That's what they can call the award.
Can we call it the Moonlight Award?
Well, they got that one right. This one, this was nominated.
I'm sorry, the Green Book Award. I'm sorry.
We can definitely call it that one. Jeez.
Sorry, that's what I meant. The whole La La Land Green Book's a debacle.
No, La La Land was with Moonlight. Green Book just won. Why? I don't know. It just won. This one only it did win one Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay, which is from the James Ivory, who wrote the screenplay for this. This is also based on a book of, I believe, the same name. It's also called Call Me By Your Name as well. But it was nominated. Timothy Chalamet was nominated for Best Actor. It was nominated for Best Picture and Best Original Song for this movie as well. So 4 nominations, 1 win for Call Me By Your Name back in 2018 when this was nominated. But let's kind of jump into the movie right away. The first thing I do want to touch on is I think we should touch on the age gap thing. And I think, Jimmy, you kind of said it right away of this movie takes place in the 80s. So it is a bit of a different time. Also adding in that it takes place in Italy also adds to a little bit more of a...
Things are a little bit different there.
Things are different, and I mean, in like Europe, they tend to age a little bit faster than they do here stateside. In terms of, especially like Brian was saying with Elio's character, of how well versed he is in the arts and how educated he already is at 17 years old. I think he's just super mature for his age, of what we would view a 17-year-old to be. If they were a mature adult, he's definitely that at 17 here in this movie. And
agreed.
And I think it also helps that they don't show him in school or studying at all, because I think that might have changed some things here. But I don't know. What were your guys' thoughts on the age difference, but looking at it through the lens of this is 1984 and in Italy?
Go ahead, Jimmy.
I was going to say, well, when I first watched the movie, like I said, it kind of threw me off. I wasn't quite sure how to take that age difference. I'm like, well, what's this movie trying to portray here? But then again, I just kind of reality checked myself and what I'm watching, what year it was. And I won't lie, I did go back after the movie was done just to verify what year it was actually being filmed in or what year it's supposed to be. Because if I can say, okay, I really enjoyed this movie and I want somebody to watch it, I don't want them to be like, you want me to watch a movie about this type of situation? I'm like, well, no, I don't. But after that, I was comfortable, and then I felt even more attached to each character, kind of understanding. And like you said, Casey, they age quicker. Age is just a number. He has the maturity of a much older young adult. So yeah, after watching the movie and then understanding what year and the country, I accepted it. I was fine with it.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I feel that Armie Hammer feels like he looks like he's older than the 24-year-old person that he's playing, though. And I think that's one thing that you kind of got to get used to. That way you feel a little bit more comfortable because, I mean, for me, Timothée Chalamet looks definitely closer to the age of 17 than Armie Hammer looked at the age of 24.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, in real life, I just had to look it up. There is about a 9-year difference between the two actors. So I'd say that's, right in the same age range that this is trying to portray here with the 24 and 17-year-old. But also I think there's a couple of scenes in here as well that kind of like, I don't know if I want to say it makes it okay, but it at least puts it in context of where we are at, especially with when Timothée Chalamet is dating this girl from the town. And he basically says outright to his dad, he's having a conversation with his father and with Oliver that he could have slept with her if he really wanted to. And the dad's like, well, why didn't you then? Like, just having this out and open conversation with his father, I think also makes his character even more mature. Whereas, again, I think that's also a cultural thing as well. In Italy, having open conversations like that with your father at 17 years old, of your dad asking you, well, why didn't you just sleep with her then? Again, things that are not always present in American culture, but definitely more ever present in like Italian culture. And I think that also adds to like his maturity level of being able to have these open conversations with his family.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. And when they start forming that relationship between each other, and you can see the parents noticing that they're, forming that relationship and they're becoming close, and they're fine with it. You know what I mean? They just accept it. And and we'll get more into what happens toward the end, but that relationship that they build throughout, just when he first arrives, Elio just kind of was just didn't like him at all because he had to give up his room for Oliver to sleep in there, and didn't quite seem like they had the same interests. And then as he continued to get to know Oliver and kind of picking up on some of the signals that he was giving, then that relationship built, and the parents could see that they were forming that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, I will certainly say, at least from how I took it from early on and whatnot, is in terms of like Elio's sexuality, whether it's one way or the other way, when talking about the girl that that he's talking to his dad with, or Oscar, whatever the case is. I think from very early on in the movie or whatever, between him portraying it and even the parents or whatever, is knowing very, very well up front that he's very fluid in in his attraction. Like, for him, it's not a matter of whether it's a male or a female or whatever the case is. He's just whoever he's going to be attracted to.
Definitely.
That's the way I saw it.
Yeah, and I see that. I mean, by the end of this, I do see that for both characters. By the end of this, too, this just shows this intense bond that these two had during the summer, and it didn't matter, if it was a male, female, or anything else. It was just an intense bond between two human beings that, in this moment of time, just connected like they did in this movie. And like the question I was going to throw out there is, we talk about how long the parents know, and Elio's father throws out that he doesn't believe the mom knows of their relationship, which I call BS on, where I think the mom knows before the father does in this movie. I think she just just because of eye movements that she has of looking at Elio and stuff, like understanding that there's something going on between these two, which is fine, and because she can already see the bond that those two have with each other.
Definitely.
This bond kind of really starts sort of with Oliver giving some hints of he might be attracted to Elio, especially during a volleyball game, which I find very funny. Just Timothy Chalamet's reaction to that, like he throws out like his arm, like he pretends his arm is hurt, and Oliver comes to kind of massage it for him, and also Oliver can immediately tell that this is like, oh, why is he touching me this way? Where he then grabs the girlfriend character and has her do it just to kind of like, I'm not hitting on you. It's just this is what I'm just trying to help you out type of situation there. Which I find very, very funny. And Armie Hammer has some great little humorous moments throughout this movie.
Right. No, you see the tension at the beginning just because Timothy Chalamet doesn't quite know where he sits with Oliver just as of yet. And, the very much the cold shoulder kind of thing, like just, get off me. This feels weird kind of thing. And, but yeah, I mean, the fact that he brings the girl like, all right, hey, you know what? I'm going to be able to, I know how I can calm the situation really quick here. Let's grab the girl back over here because that'll make him comfortable again. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And, being somebody who's part of this community, that's common behavior, I guess you could say, when you're attracted to somebody, you're just not quite sure what to do. So his action of him like kind of tensing up and like kind of get away from me, I completely understood what he was trying to do there. It's just, he was not quite comfortable yet with Oliver, and he wasn't quite sure what he wanted to do. So yeah, no, I thought it was although funny, I thought it was a great scene because of everything that it portrayed. So
where do you guys kind of think that the turning point for these two characters are in terms of both knowing and understanding that they're both attracted to one another? Is it the bike ride where they end up in front of that little monument fountain in the middle of town? Is that kind of really where you guys think that it's like it's starting to click for both of them, that there's something more than just a kind of just a friendly relationship going on?
Well, I think it was there. Personally, I think that they knew it was there between each other. And then when they took that ride to the post office into town, I think that's kind of where they were I think it was Elio actually who told Oliver basically that he was attracted to him. And Oliver was like, no, we can't do this. This can't happen. But I think he knew that he had feelings for Elio and Elio Oliver way before that. I think I would probably say shortly after that volleyball game.
Yeah, I mean, I think the bike ride is what helped kind of get you to start going in the right direction, just because of now that they're by themselves. They're not with a bunch of people where they're trying to necessarily hide who they are or question, what's going on around them. It's just literally just those two together and whatnot. But I will certainly say, kind of to your point though, too, here, Jimmy, is the fact that, this is the part where, at least for me, I was questioning, as this, romance is starting to kind of bubble up and whatnot, is who's swooning who kind of thing, who's trying to go after it. Because at first, it was Oliver, and then, Ilya was like, oh no, don't be touching me, man. That's just weird. And then we flip it around, whatever. And now we've got Ilya like trying to go up, and Oliver's like, oh no, we can't be doing this. So, that's where it's like, they're still both in that part of their relationship where they're like, we're not quite sure, there obviously is an attraction in there, but at the same time too, is this something we should be pursuing kind of thing?
Yeah.
Definitely. Do you guys feel this was? I think the question for this answers itself in the movie, at least for Elio. Of this is the first relationships he's had with the same sex. Do you guys feel this is the first time for Oliver as well, or is do you feel Oliver has maybe been with obviously he has a girlfriend that is revealed by the end of this movie, but do you guys feel like maybe he's had relations with the same sex before?
I think he has, actually, just kind of based off of his motions throughout the film, and kind of how the relations the physical relations that take place between him and Elio, I feel like this is not the first time that he's done this and that he's experienced same-sex interaction.
I'm still kind of on the fence of whether or not that would be either one of them to be perfect. Is that, because of, just like I said, the way that the family seems to interact with Elio in, his conversation and just with everything that's going on with him and whatnot. I don't see this as necessarily as the first for him either, though.
Really?
No.
Okay.
That's where, like, I look at it, and that's where I think just from early on, I think for him, I think a relationship and love is more of, to the person, not necessarily to who, their gender.
I do agree that I think that was definitely part of his upbringing as well, in terms of being, and this seems like very progressive family and one that really studies history and arts and science, and is very well educated. Where I feel like the family probably grew up in a household that was very accepting of really anything Elio would do. But I do feel this is a first time relationship for him, just because of how he reacts to everything Oliver is doing and how really timid he is when he finally does tell Oliver how he feels, because he's also at that point, he's still with his girlfriend at that point and still having relations with her as well, whereas Oliver is seen dancing with another woman while in Italy on vacation and stuff, but you don't ever see him go away like in like by himself with a girl at all during this trip at all. So I definitely think that Oliver might have had sort of relations in the past with another man, but again, it's not ever explicit in this movie. But I feel Elio, this is definitely a first time for him in exploring this. And I mean, I would say this is definitely a first love type of story as well, of 17-year-old Elio finding love for the first time, whereas he has this girlfriend, but he doesn't have that same type of connection with her that he does Oliver. And I think that's also very important for this movie to have that girlfriend character, because it shows the like those two seem like cute together and stuff, but it's not like in like this next level like him and Oliver are throughout the movie.
Yeah, and there were some actions that he did. He spent the whole day with his girlfriend, but at the same time, I kind of feel like she kind of got jaded on that, because he was trying to get to midnight so he can meet up with Oliver. But I mean, there are scenes kind of where they're touching and being very close and romantic together, but I kind of felt like he wasn't comfortable. But I do feel like he, again, going back to not being specifically attracted to a certain gender, I think he was enjoying her presence and her, just, I guess you could say, overall personality, and just getting to know her and discover her. Yeah.
You would feel like in any other summer, if Oliver hadn't shown up, it would have been a love story between those two type of thing. Like those, it would have been a summer bond between those two, and just so happened that this is the summer that Oliver showed up into Elio's life.
This would have been your Italian Grease.
It would have been. I mean, it still kind of is. I kind of wish they would have drove off into the sunset together in a car, but nonetheless, we get the ending that we get in this movie. Yeah, like I said, I think that relationship is very, very important to have in this movie, and I do think it shows that Elio is still very, very young as well, in terms of kind of like experimenting with he is still attracted to the girlfriend character, but all this time he still wants to spend as much time as he can with Oliver, as present in the trip there, where like he finally gets back and it's like past midnight and she's like not even there when he has to show up to meet with her again. That's because he's spending the entire day with Oliver at that point.
Yeah. And I think kind of going back to whether Elio has actually had any relationship with a man, I don't think he actually even had relations with a woman. I think he was a virgin in the whole, because of that peach scene.
Oh, the peach.
Oh yeah, it kind of took me back to American Pie, but yeah. I think kind of just solidified that he had not had any type of sexual relations with anybody, male, female, and this was all just brand new to him.
Mm-hmm. Still kind of really maturing into his own body, his own person, who he really is at that point in his life. And yeah, like the peach scene it does remind me as well of American Pie.
Yeah.
Like that's automatically the scene you kind of think of with that scene. And like when that scene first came up the first time I watched it, I was like, I understand this kid, like with Jason Biggs in American Pie, where you're like, okay, teenagers are weird and they do weird stuff like this. I understand that. But then what I find really charming, and I'll get Brian's take when he comes back on this scene, because I kind of have been setting him up for it the last couple of weeks of like saying like, beware of the peach scene. I don't know what your thoughts are going to be on this when we finally get to it. But what I find kind of charming in that is Armie Hammer's reaction to it in a way, because he kind of makes Elio try to feel safe in what he's doing.
Yes. I think, when he grabs it, he kind of smiles and chuckles and kind of understands like what Elio did. And to basically, he said it without saying it, but said that it's okay. And I understand. And we can take things slow, I guess is what he was trying to get across to Elio. But yeah, I think he reacted very well when he walked in and he's seen that peach on the nightstand. Yeah. So,
and a type of thing of like, I get it. I was 17 years old once. I would have done weird stuff like you're doing. There's no reason to be ashamed about it, and it's okay. We don't need it to. We can slow down in our budding relationship that we have.
Yeah, definitely.
What I love about this movie is, like I said, it feels like a summertime movie, and I think definitely like the cinematography lends to that as well. Like this is such a gorgeous looking movie. Like I think Brian said earlier, like it feels like you want to go on vacation here. Like I just want to spend the summer in this little Italian village where all they do is eat fruit and hang out by the beach and by the pool and read books, and like that's all they do on all summer. I'm like, sounds like just a perfect summer vacation right there.
Right. Yeah. And the scenery as well throughout the movie, just seeing Italy and through that lens and being able to experience, I've never been. So I think it was great to see some of the things that they represented, and they showed you the kind of the culture, how they live. I really enjoyed that part of it as well, like being able to see all of something that I've never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
Well, part of something I've never seen.
And it also feels super 80s as well, especially with the attire. I think they definitely nailed that. I think shooting in Italy probably helps with it keeping in really a timeless era, no matter what era you're supposed to be shooting in with that Italian landscape. It feels like you can really shoot and have the movie take place in any era. It's definitely the attire, the wardrobe that is worn, like especially with Armie Hammer. I think Armie Hammer is super 80s in this movie with his oversized shirts and his kind of short khaki shorts that he wears throughout the movie. Like he feels straight ripped out of an 80s movie in this.
Definitely.
Brian, since you are back, we did talk about the infamous peach scene that I warned you of.
I missed that for a bloody nose. Okay,
I know that's why you snuck out. But we're just basically saying of how like Armie Hammer's character, when he sees what Elio has done with the peach, is basically like comes in and tells him like it's all right. He handles it in the most mature way possible with Elio. Well, also teasing him a little bit in it, I think too. But
I mean, he kind of walks into it, kind of thing, But yeah, I mean, he definitely took a little bit more of a high road too with it, while being a little seductive with it as well.
What I find really charming with their relationship beginning to form is that kind of like a little boy, Elio takes Oliver to a little hideout that he has. Like, this is a secret place no one else knows about, and I only come here to read a ton. Like, I read so many books here every summer. This is my little hideout that no one knows about. And he takes Oliver to it. I'm like, that's such a schoolboy thing to do with like your first time love of taking them to like, this is my secret place no one else knows about. Now you know about it.
Right.
Yeah.
So he definitely has maturity as well, but he also has that naivety that all high school aged boys do have.
Yes, definitely.
Mhm.
But this seems to also be the place where he takes the special people, if you will, because this is the same place he takes the girl, though, too.
Is it though? Do you think he would have told her if that was the same case? Or I guess that also goes into like he's just trying to get laid with the girl. I don't know.
Because that looked like the same kind of crusty, back room with the mattress.
No, not the mattress. The water that he takes him to.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not the mattress is definitely for doing the business, but the little pond area that he takes Oliver to, that he tells him that is his secret place to hang out and be by himself.
Right.
Yeah. So
There's something that I really enjoyed about the film is that they didn't over sexualize it. They could have definitely made it to where Oliver, was shirtless all the time and ripped and wearing, a Speedo. And they didn't do that. And I really enjoyed that. They didn't make it about that. They just kept it more about the relationship and the bond that they're forming, and not necessarily based off of one's body image, which I thought was
Right.
very important in today's day and age.
And with Armie Hammer, they probably could have easily pulled that off, but they didn't go for it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Elio is shirtless more in this movie than Armie Hammer is, and he's a scrawny little boy, that Timothy Chalamet.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I even with the scenes of those two together could have also been exploitive, where this movie doesn't take that. Like, the only really exploitive scene is with Elio and his girlfriend when they're up in the attic area, whereas every other scene with Elio and Oliver together is very just charming and endearing and very I don't know, conservative in a way, the way at least that they're shooting the scene. It's just showing this tight bond between the two characters and how much of a relationship is really built up between the two of them. It's never exploiting that relationship at all.
Yeah, it was definitely a respectful representation of their sexual relations that they have. So I really appreciate that from the director and the screenwriter, that they were able to not sexualize it as much as they definitely could have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what this movie is not a Hollywood movie at all in the way it's portraying really anything in this movie, because if you look at any other relationship type of movie, usually in Hollywood you kind of get the two types of ending. You get the happy ending, happily ever after ending, or one of them dies by some inexplicable reason. One of them just dies.
You always gotta have the tragic ending.
You gotta have the tragic ending, where this movie does have a tragic ending, but it's also very hopeful as well. And I know I'm jumping to the ending here, but I do want to talk about that, the last like 15, 20 minutes of this movie, because by the time we get to the end of the movie, Oliver obviously has to go back home because his internship with Elio's father is done. So again, the parents obviously know what's going on and send the two to is it another country, or it's basically wherever the train station is at?
Yeah, I think it's just kind of another part of the country, I guess you can say. The mountains area, I guess it's where they went. So
the two kind of get to have this last little trip together, this last little weekend together before they have to part ways. And what I really like too is when they do part ways, of Oliver getting on the train and Elio's there at the train station, they don't say anything to each other. There's no dialogue between the two. Oliver grabs his bags, gets on the train, looks back at Elio, and then the train takes off. And there's no dialogue between the two characters. And the next thing we have is Elio calling home to his mom, asking her to pick him up. And I'm like, that's, again, in any other Hollywood movie, there would have been some big, I'll see you later type of type of big speech from probably from Armie Hammer in this situation. And there's zero dialogue between the two characters. It was this like, and I think especially for Oliver, he knows this was a summer thing, something that was beautiful for that summer and something that probably won't last past that. But for Elio, he takes it very differently, and I just don't think he knows how to react in that moment of what to say to Oliver there. And again, he kind of reverts back to just a schoolboy by the end of it, of calling his mom to come pick him up while he's in tears.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it was a powerful scene too. You know, just like you said, that dialogue of him just getting on the train and just, again, nothing being said, just looking back, it's like they both had a respectful understanding that this was, like you said, a summer fling, and he's got to go back to he's from the U.S., correct? Am I not mistaken? I think
Armie Hammer, Oliver.
Yes. Oliver. Yeah. Okay, so you know, he had to come back to the U.S. and he was still in, or Elio still in Italy. But yeah, that scene was very powerful. It although there was not tears and they, you know, none of them cried and said, like you said, see you later. Just the emotion of what led up to that, to the what they just experienced the last 3 days, going through the countryside and partying and getting drunk. You know, they had a great time. They got to enjoy each other's company, and then having that scene, it was very powerful without it being powerful, if that makes sense at all.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's kind of set up by the scene of Elio getting drunk and he's watching Oliver dance with a girl out in the streets. And it's kind of like Elio in a way is like seeing like, well, he can kind of live on without me. He's having fun without me. Whereas all of my fun from this summer is really the time I spent with him. And that's definitely a maturing thing for him of trying to realize and form these relationships of people that he surrounds himself with. Of they might still have fun without me, but I need to find my way into their life in a way. Whereas I think he was still trying to get into Oliver's life towards the end of it in the last little weekend that they have together. But in a way sort of realizes that Oliver's going to move on without him and he's still going to stay here and has to eventually mature from that. Yeah,
definitely. And I think he understood too that, you know, age, obviously, he still has to go through college, and Oliver's here ending his graduate degree. So yeah, I think overall he learned a lot in those 3 days, but also cherished them. You could definitely see that I would say each of them actually cherished it. I feel that Oliver definitely displayed his enjoyment in spending that alone time and being able to be himself with Elio while they, you know, went around the countryside and had fun.
And I think part of that maturing aspect with Elio is when he comes back to the town and his ex-girlfriend is there, and basically she expresses her love to him by she tells Elio that she loves him and will always be there for him, even if they're just friends. And I think that's the speech he was kind of hoping Oliver would have given to him before Oliver left, and he gets it here. And so in a way, kind of not realizing what he had back at home in a way in terms of friendships and relationships where he never got that from Oliver in their departure from each other, where he gets it coming back home, where I feel it's kind of a nice pick-me-up for him when he comes back of hearing that from her, and that he meant as much to her as Oliver meant to him in a way.
I agree. Now, I always questioned if she actually knew about the relationship between Oliver and Elio. I wonder if she knew that they were being romantic together, or if it was just that she picked up on that he was not interested in her.
I have wondered that too, because there's this scene when the two boys leave on the bus and the parents are there saying goodbye, and then Oliver's girlfriend sort of from the summer shows up and misses the bus and has a funny moment of, oh, I missed him type of thing. And the parents invite her and Elio's girlfriend back to the house. I'm wondering if the parents talked to them at all during that dinner with each other of what's happened. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good question, and they never truly explain it throughout the by the end of the movie at all. Um, I think that would have been a good understanding to whether or not she did know about him, having relations, or if his parents said something to her, just kind of maybe dropped hints. I don't know, but it would have been nice to know whether or not she was aware, and that's why she said what she did. That she wants to remain friends, and he said, yes, I want you as well. So I overall, I think they could have looped that in a little bit, at least just to get a clearer understanding. But I think they still handled that situation well, having to deal with that. And me personally having to deal with something like that, I know that it's not the easiest. So.
And I think for her, she definitely knew that the love she was sending out to him wasn't getting reciprocated back to her. I think that's definitely the part she knew. Maybe she didn't know about the Oliver aspect of it, but she definitely knew that something else was going on with Elio, that he wasn't giving his full attention to her whenever they were together.
Yeah, definitely.
So whether or not she knew, I don't know. I think that's a kind of a nice question that's left open by the end of this movie.
It is.
Along with, I guess, the parents knowing, which I think is a little more explicit on whether or not they knew. And I want to jump into that scene with Elio's father at the end of this movie, which is Michael. Again, this for me, like if you're going to show a scene from this movie during your Oscars moments during Best Picture of showing one clip, that this is the scene I would show, is this speech here.
Most definitely. That was a very powerful moment between father and son, and for the father to, open up as he did and explain to Elio that he understands what he's going through because he's been in that situation. That was a very powerful, it just really brings you into the film right there at the end even more, so that you can actually get a true understanding of a true understanding of how his parents knew and how they were accepting of it, and where they're supporting it basically without saying that they support it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the dad says it in the speech that he's like, I don't know if your mom knows, but I think that's part of the relationship with the parents as well, is that they'd never had an explicit conversation between the two, but I think separately they both knew about the relationship between Elio and Oliver. And then this speech is just, again, handled so well as well, because in any other Hollywood style of movie, this probably would have been more explicit of the father showing his support and love and basically laying out the entire movie in front of Elio here. Whereas this is very subtle, and it's very much a character thing more than summarizing what the movie's really about. It's more of his dad telling him how he can learn and how he can progress for this, because this is something the father went through. And that's a question I had. What type of relationship did the father have before this that he is now expressing this to Elio? Is this a lost love that he had at a very young age? Was it with perhaps another man that he had a relationship also near Elio's age, maybe? Again, questions that are left open, I think, by the end of this movie too.
Yeah, definitely. There is that question after that conversation that the father and Elio have that you don't know, but you definitely can understand that there is a mutual respect between the two, and that they understand each other. Elio understands that his dad did go through this and went through a similar situation. Again, whether or not it was an age thing, or maybe it was reversed. Maybe he was the younger one and he fell for a college guy. But yeah, I just think it's great that they were able to have that conversation, number one. Number two, that they could relate, I guess you could say, intertwine together and understand truly that what happened is going to happen, and it's going to, until you find the right one, it's going to continue to happen, and you just have to learn and move on from it. But it's a great question on whether or not what type of relationship his father had.
Yeah. And I think I think leaving that kind of open-ended really adds to that speech, because it can really just be applied to any relationship anyone has ever had, because it just applies to the dad of saying it was something special the two had, something that was, as he's like, it's something that's beautiful. It's something that should be cherished, the time that you guys did get to spend together. And it's something that really happens only once in a lifetime, and it's something kind of the dad even said he's still trying to find in a way of having that sort of bond and relationship and something to cherish like that. And it's such just a great, powerful scene from Michael Stuhlbarg. It's just so good.
Yeah, he did very well.
And Chalamet's reaction to it is perfect, kind of having just his character, Elio is just soaking it all in. You can just tell that he's just taking it all in from his father. And like, it's not a fatherly sit down of like, I'm telling you how it is type of thing. It's more of like a friendship scene more than a father-son scene.
Definitely. And I think, like you mentioned at the beginning, it's different. They're very open the way that they communicate about things. And I think that's kind of helped bridge or create that scene that the two had there in the end. So yeah, I definitely think that it was more of a friend type conversation than it was that I'm your dad and you're my son.
Mm-hmm. And then when we get to the end of the movie where it's Christmas and they're back in Italy and they get a phone call from Oliver, and Elio is the first person to pick it up, and it kind of brings it does. I mean, it doesn't kind of, it does it brings a smile to your face to hear those two talking to each other again. And it really feels again like these two characters never said goodbye to each other, because they just pick up their conversation in a way pretty much right as soon as he picks up the phone. It's not the same, but it's almost like they didn't have to say goodbye back then.
Yeah, definitely. And it was nice to see them just get right back. It was almost like they just hopped right back on a bike and started, riding back into town again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think kind of when Oliver explains to him, hey, I'm engaged, I think that's kind of where you see the closure, I guess you can say, that didn't happen at the train station. It's happening there. And it's hard to kind of process, and you see Elio process it. He sits down and he's like, oh man, this is the goodbye. This is it. And mad props to him for being able to stare into a fire as the credits are rolling throughout that film. And he did great during that. But you definitely understand that that's the closure that never happened at the train station is happening right there after that phone call. And he's actually having to move on now, unfortunately.
And I definitely think that's what that phone call for sure is a closure in kind of multiple ways. Of finally he gets, the closure of saying goodbye to Oliver, of okay, this relationship isn't going to continue past this, but he also gets the closure of what it meant for Oliver too, where they call each other by their name, by the title, call me by your name, where they call each other by their names. And I think that also with Oliver reciprocating that back to Elio is like, yes, that meant something to me too. And it was a special thing and a special moment, but it just can't continue past that. But that doesn't mean that it still didn't mean something to me. And I think that's why I think that is probably why he's crying more so at the end than him saying he's getting married, of Elio, I think, finally realizing of what that relationship really meant in that time and moment, because he's sitting there for like good 3 to 5 minutes, just camera on him in front of a fire, and you see him crying, and then he starts smiling, like he's going through the gambit of emotions just in those end credits of the movie.
He is, yeah. And that's another powerful scene in the movie. At the end, you know what I mean? The credits are literally rolling, and seeing Elio sit there and play those emotions, like you said, throughout his head of what they went through the summer they had. And kind of, I think when he smiles there towards the end, he's kind of accepting, like you said, that it is the closure finally.
He went through the 5 steps.
Yeah. Basically.
Brian, what are your thoughts on the finale of the movie with the phone call, the phone call of Oliver calling back during Christmas?
Well, I mean, I think it definitely helps for the sake of Elio's closure and knowing exactly where the relationship stands and all that stuff. I will certainly say that's an interesting way. That's how you do the credits. You basically, the film is not done until literally the film is done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I also did like the fact that, the parents were like, we know that Elio needs his time with Oliver by himself on the phone, so that they can have that, one-on-one conversation. It didn't have to be a group conversation or anything like that to allow them to kind of like that small piece, for themselves.
Yeah, and even after he was off the phone, they seen him and they seen him walk toward the fire, and they just let him have his moment. They knew, what just took place or what happened. So yeah, I think that was great that they, again, were so accepting and understanding, knew, and just let him process what he needed to process.
Is there any other scenes you guys would like to bring up before we kind of go into our final thoughts on Call Me by Your Name? Any other scenes that we didn't touch on that you'd like to bring up?
I think the namesake of the movie, when Oliver tells Elio, "Call me by your name," and I don't know, that moment, I feel like that was them kind of saying that I love you, kind of, like, I want you to call me by your name. And that was the first time I've ever heard anything like that before. And when I heard it, I was like, weird. But then I kind of felt that they were connecting with each other and on an even more deeper level. And I actually found it romantic then, when just call me by your name. Just, I don't know. It's sweet and romantic, and it was weird at first and almost like a demanding type command. Like, okay, you're younger than me, so I'm going to demand you to call me by your name type deal. But I think what they were trying to portray is that love and the sweetness of it.
It's why I'm glad at least that specific part of it happens later on in the movie when they've had a time to develop in that relationship went out. Because if you would have done that earlier on when you're still trying to understand the relationship, it would have come out completely different.
Yeah.
And then again, with that phone call at the end, definitely pays off.
Yeah.
With that scene of, again, them expressing their love for each other, especially in that final scene.
It's almost kind of like they're like Jimmy said, it's kind of their way of saying I love you without actually having to say I love you.
Yep.
And
again, can intimidate some.
Yeah. And again, it's their own kind of way, because like we said, Elio gets the I love you moment from his girlfriend towards the end of the movie, but doesn't ever get those words from Oliver explicitly, whereas they get them from by calling each other by their name.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't, Brian, unless you have any other scenes, I think I hit on pretty much everything I wanted to hit on for this movie.
Well, the horror scene that I had to deal with here, I don't even know half of what you guys were talking about while I was gone.
It was mostly us just gushing about Michael Stuhlbarg and how he should have won an Oscar for this movie and was not even nominated.
You're not wrong. I mean, that would definitely be one, because I assume you kind of allude to the fact that we're talking about like the relationships of past for the dad as well, I'm assuming, right?
So let me ask, we asked each other this question. We didn't come to an explicit answer. What do you feel the past relationship was that the dad had?
I think it was more of I feel it was more of dad expressing that he understood Elio because he'd been in a similar situation in that he had a love or a connection with somebody, but I don't think it was ever acted upon. Like he stayed in the lane that he is, to the point where he grew up, he got married, went to college, all that stuff, whatever the case is. But I think it was a matter of that was potentially something that was a part of him, but it was never something that was ever acted upon. And he wanted to basically tell that to Elio to say, hey, I understand because I've been there. It's just Elio got a lot further into the actual relationship than his dad did.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll go into our final thoughts here, and then my last question. So, Brian, you want to go ahead and kick it off? This is your first time watch. What is your final thoughts on Call Me by Your Name?
Very good movie. Definitely going into this movie knowing that you're definitely going to get a very cultured movie, I feel like. And it kind of goes again with like what I said at the very beginning of this. As this movie starts, I felt like, as somebody who went to college, I felt like I was not smart enough for this movie. Because these people seem like, they're very good at what they do. I mean, even when you have a 17-year-old who's over there going, oh yeah, I'm over here writing my own music and I'm doing this, whatever. And he's a very educated, smart kid, basically, But yeah, again, it's one of those ones I think I need to rewatch just to rewatch and to pick up on things I probably didn't pick up before. But overall, I mean, definitely a fantastic movie. Very great chemistry from both the leads and whatnot, and all the supporting cast does a fantastic job. Like there really isn't a weak link in this. I honestly think.
Yeah, definitely agree.
Yeah, for me, having watched it now here a second time, a few years removed from the first time watching it, it's just as good as the first time. I think it's just one of those movies that you pick up on more stuff every time you watch it, and just kind of gets better every time I watch it. For me, like I don't give too many movies a 5-star review, but Call Me by Your Name for me is a 5-star movie. This is a perfect movie. I think there's zero flaws in this movie. I think it's just kind of perfect all the way around in its storytelling, cinematography, direction, acting, all the things that go into a film. I think this movie just has all of that. And one scene I do want to bring up quick is since Brian talks about, Elio writing his own music and stuff, is when he's playing the song on guitar and then goes inside to play it on the piano, and he plays it in 3 different ways. And Oliver understands each way that he's playing it is different. And it's kind of this friendly relationship, and kind of Elio antagonizing Oliver in a way of like, I'm going to play this a little differently, see if you pick up on it, just to kind of antagonize you a little bit, just to tease you a little bit. And it's such a great character moment between those two, and such a fun bond that they have throughout this movie. And yeah, I think the 2 characters and 2 actors, our 2 leads, are just incredible. And again, Michael Stuhlbarg is yes.
I do have to agree with, at least for that sake of that scene, it's the fact that it was, oh well, why didn't you play it this way? Oh, you mean like this? You still didn't play it right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you mean like this?
Yeah.
Again, the part where the 17-year-old makes me feel stupid.
For me, I would definitely have to kind of piggyback off of both of you, especially Casey, when you said it's storytelling. You don't feel like it's a film, because it's not what you would get out of a Hollywood film, where you're going to get the happy ending or somebody dies. You know what I mean? There is no official closure when you think there's closure, and there's no official of, oh my gosh, I'm deeply in love with you, let's go off and run and get married. Again, it's a story that's being told of love and romance, and how somebody's coming of age, and how they're discovering themselves, and somebody who's trying to determine what they truly want. And kind of whether this is the first time that Oliver's done this, or this is a multiple time that he's done this. I just, overall, the film, I think it was shot well. Scenery, like we talked about, I think it was great being able to see Italy for somewhere that I've never been before, parts of it. And then again, the character chemistry was just amazing and just right on.
So last question I do have, if we were going to pair Call Me by Your Name with another movie, what would you pair it with to have a double feature between Call Me by Your Name and blank?
Oh, it's a hard question.
That is.
Just because I don't feel like I'm cultured enough to be able to answer that question.
Oh, geez. I don't know. I can't think of a film that I would pair with this.
This really is kind of one of those ones where you kind of have to watch this on and standalone and let it stew and let it be with you before you go adventure onto something else.
Yeah, I think you truly have to understand, like, what did you just watch? Like, everything. What just happened?
Mm-hmm.
What emotions were expressed without being expressed? Like, yeah.
That's why I'm going to pair this movie with a movie that leaves you the exact same way of, how do I process this? What are the relationships going forward? How does this continue? I would play this movie and The Graduate back to back, of really trying to understand relationships and where they go forward, because this movie kind of has a little bit of a closure, but still it's a once in a lifetime moment of these two falling together. Whereas The Graduate is straight up, what the hell happens next with these two characters? So I don't know what order I would play it in. I would think maybe I would play think I would play The Graduate second, just to leave you questioning yourself even more so as you leave the double feature.
So play a movie based in the 80s, then play a movie made in the 80s.
The Graduate is
or is this
like from the
78?
60s. Graduate's old, yeah. And then I would play Wayne's World 2 right after. I'll go triple feature. Then you have the fun ending with Wayne's World 2.
You just want a reason to watch Wayne's World 2. Wayne's World 2.
Absolutely.
So I don't think you're going to get a good answer out of either one of us.
I know. Brian,
No.
you mentioned one of them too that you could throw out there, but I don't know.
What did I mention?
My other option was Grease, because that is also a summer romance, except it goes into the high school year right after. So maybe Elio and Oliver find that Elio has transferred to Oliver's school, except Oliver is not who he thought he was. He is part of this kind of gang who wears leather coats and likes to drag race.
Elio going to have the Sandy D hair, though?
Yeah, and then Elio goes through a total transformation, starts wearing leather jackets by the end of it, tight pants, and they dance at a carnival together.
Oh, that's great.
So
I'm disturbed.
Grease or The Graduate, I guess, is your options. Let us know out there what you would pair with this movie here for your perfect double feature if you were going to throw something with Call Me By Your Name, maybe even Luca. I don't know. I haven't watched Luca yet, but we'll leave it at that. Brian, what do we got coming up next week with our last movie for Pride Month? It's again stepping out of the kind of box you would think we'd be in.
I was going to say, go and do a Nightmare on Elm Street 2 was like stepping out of the box. This one is stepping way out of the box, but I think definitely plays into it and whatnot. No, next week we get to talk about The Matrix, which you can, definitely with the now with knowing how the Wachowskis have changed over the course of the last 22 years, and you can definitely see those undertones, and I'm definitely looking forward to revisiting a movie which, honestly, for one, I own, and I've owned since the day that this came out. I don't remember the last time I watched it, so it's going to be a nice, good time to revisit it anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yep, same here.
Is this a VHS there, Brian?
No, movie came out in '99, and I already had my DVD player, so it was one of my early DVDs.
So you're like $200 DVD, yeah.
Basically.
No. Most expensive DVD I ever bought was $30. What Blade and Species?
I'm sorry you paid $30 for Species.
Yeah, it's either $25 or $30. That's what DVDs cost in late '98. Was $25-$30, and like my Hackers, I remember I paid $25. Suncoast Video. It had the movie and the trailer, and that was it.
Did you have scene selection though?
Yes, and it did have an Easter egg in it for the menu, and that's about it. I'm aging myself now. I'm gonna go grab my walker.
I am also excited to watch The Matrix. It's been a while since I've seen this movie. I haven't watched it in a good probably 5 to 8 years. So yeah, I'm excited to watch it again. Out of the box pick for this month, but I'm very excited to watch it. Perhaps through a new lens. Having watched it the first time as a sci-fi dystopian movie, and now this time having to watch it through this different lens is going to be interesting. So yeah, that's going to be next week as we finish off Pride Month. We'll kind of jump into our plugs here. Brian, where can they find us on social media?
On the social media, it's all at Backlot 605. You can check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our Letterboxd HQ. Check us out there. Also on Facebook, you can also check us out at the South Dakota Film Community Group. Join the conversation. We just like to talk about movies and all the fun stuff that we got going on.
Mm-hmm. And you can subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, Amazon Music, and on YouTube. And if you would, leave us a review on there. That would be awesome. We'd love to hear your thoughts, whether it's 1 star or 5 stars. We hope it's 5, but if it's
5
1...
5 stars.
If it's 1, it's 1. I get it. I understand. You can also support the show on Patreon, patreon.com/backlot605. We do have a couple different tiers on there, and we have to give a special shout out to our patrons, Logan, Blake, Andy, Derek, Lou, Corey, and Darren. Thank you so much for supporting the show. And a couple more things I just want to throw out there quick. Go check out our coming soon article on backlot605.com. Everything that is coming soon to movie theaters nationwide, locally, streaming, VHS, beta, I don't know, probably that might be on there as well, but go check it out. And then also we got a couple little events coming up the last Wednesday of the month, which I believe is the 30th, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, we do have a South Dakota film community group meetup at Full Circle. We are going to be talking about Pride movies as our theme for that event. The Birdcage will definitely be brought up. So if you have not watched it or haven't watched it in a while, go check out The Birdcage again. And also at Full Circle. I mean, the podcast will be out by then, but hopefully you made it out there. Also on July 3rd, I don't know if we announced this yet on the podcast, but we are going to be having another live show in which we are counting down the 20 best Pixar movies, including Luca, which just came out. So it'll be
Where does Luca fall?
I don't know. Where is Luca going to fall? What's going to be number one? Again, some movies will be left off this list as well. So some movies won't even make our top 20. But that'll be coming up July 3rd, 7 p.m. at Spellbound Magic Shop, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Top 20 Pixar movies. And then I'm going to throw it off to Jimmy to give us a plug where he can find Sioux Falls Pride. And what's your favorite Pixar movie?
All right. So Sioux Falls Pride, you can visit us online. Our website is siouxfallspride.org. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook as well. You can also, on our website, you can purchase any Pride swag. We got our buffaloes, we got lanyards, we got bow ties, we got anything rainbow, transgender, bisexual, non-binary. We have all types of flags available. So just visit our website, siouxfallspride.org, or Facebook or Instagram. And for my favorite Pixar movie, I don't know. I'm a sucker for Toy Story. I really like the first Toy Story, just Toy Story 1. I don't know. That just does it for me. That's always, if that's on, I'm going to watch it.
Yeah, I'm on the show, but I'm going to make a bold prediction. All 4 Toy Story movies will be in our top 10. I'm sorry, Andy Heller, but it's going to happen. All 4 Toy Stories will make our top 10. It is not a matter if, but it is a matter of when. So
I still want to create anarchy and give a veto to Sam.
You don't want to do that. Actually, I might want to do that because he likes Toy Story 2. So maybe we'll throw that in there just so Toy Story makes our top 10 with all 4 movies. But yeah, that is again coming up July 3rd. Go check it out. It's on our Facebook for more information. But Jimmy, thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you.
Absolute blast to have you on.
Thank you for having me again. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. So for Brian Mensing, I am Casey Kelderman. We will check y'all out on the next time on the Backlot of South Dakota. It's only been 137 episodes. I should know our sign off by then. But anyway,
it's all you too.
See you later.